Yeah, so hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our final project event of the solkelp and seaforester project, funded by the EA grants, the Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein grants. The event will be in English because we have foreign partners, and it's after all an international project that's also streamed outside Portugal. So I would now like to ask Dr. Soraya Carvalho, the director of the environmental department of the Cascais municipality, to say a few welcome words. I should note that Cascais municipality is a former partner of the seaforester project, so they are directly involved in this work as well, which is a very good sign. So, please.
I'll speak English, but I'll just say boa tarde to all the Portuguese people here. I think it's the least I can do. I'll keep it short because I'm the person with less interesting things to say. You're going to hear a whole afternoon great projects. So I'm from the municipality of Cascais. Our team here, Pedro and Margarida, are from the unit of strategy of the sea, and this means we take the sea. It's really important for us. So our department is actually environment and sea department. I think it's the only one in Portugal actually in the city council. And this actually wants to tell everyone the sea matters. Sea is very important. We have a coastline with how many kilometers? 30 kilometers. And we look at the sea, and this is the last message I have for you before you go and listen to the interesting projects, from all perspectives: economic perspective, environmental perspective, sports perspectives, and we want to combine everything. So we welcome everyone. We welcome universities. We work with universities because they're so important. We work with companies. We have local companies already exploring the algae. I don't think they're produced here, but they have a company here. They are. No, they're not produced here. And we even have, and you're gonna try this. The tourism school is gonna have a special treat for you, and it's all based on algae. So just to let you know that it's a multi-dimensional intervention that we try to put in place. So I'll shut up now, so you can listen to all the interesting projects, and just the message is this is important for us. We want to invest, we want to support. So feel free to call us if you have great projects, and we'll look into it and maybe explore them. Okay, so have a nice afternoon, and very sorry I need to go to another meeting. But when we leave them, Tim will tell me everything that's going to go happening today, not tonight. Don't want to know what's happening tonight.
Yeah, so I will jump straight into the presentation because we are very short in time. I will give an update on kelp farming. The idea of this event was not so much to give a line-by-line presentation of what the detailed activities in the project or of the results, but more to put it a little bit in the larger context of what's going on and our motivations to do this project and what we've been observing alongside. So the project solkelp, which is this first part of the event, consists on three technical parts. One is about implementing commercial scale kelp farming capacity in Portugal through Alga Plus installations. And the second one is to do some grow-out trials, which is the main part that I will talk about in the following. And we also had the attempt or the work of trying to implement commercial scale primaria cultivation in Norway. That is because there was a need of primaria here by the company Agaplast in Portugal, but in summer they cannot cultivate that. So the idea was to use the colder water in Norway to supply. All these topics are covered through the following presentations, and I will move on with a very little remark seaweed itself. In Europe, we're not so used to seaweed as a commodity, but worldwide it's a huge market. It's billions of euros or dollars, and over 30 million tons, of which a very large part is kept. So the brown seaweed with the leaves, which we are here concerned about in this part of the project, which I talk about now. So brown seaweed or kelp has a substantial share in that worldwide market, and the food is actually the major part of it, the major sector. In Europe, there is no history of kelp as food or seaweed as food. And also, one thing we often forget, there's different species we can cultivate here compared to Asia. It's the species that are kombu and wakano, the main species. They don't exist in nature here. It's only a similar species, but it's not the same. We cannot just apply protocols and all these 100 years of learning in Asia and put them here. It doesn't work. So there is a range of very interesting startups and also starting interest from food giants over the last, we could say 5 years, maybe 6 years, in seaweed and kelp in particular. And that has given place for many companies. Actually, Seaweed Solutions in Norway was probably the first in Northern Europe, but then many others have followed in the last years to start trying to make a business out of cultivating kelp. And one of the concerns has started to become available concessions. It's like in aquaculture in general. Whenever you have large-scale production, the concessions, the space gets an issue, and that is especially a case in Norway, where you have lots of fjords and lots of good areas, but then they are very much used already to get food. So one of the rationale of the solkelp project was, why don't we have a look, how could we do that in Portugal? Because it's a very big coastline with very, very much space. So the general, I always use Seaweed Solutions a little bit as an example case, but other companies do it one way or the other in similar ways. You have a hatchery phase where you grow the seedlings to a certain stage. You put it on lines. Nowadays it's mainly lines. Some try to do it on carpets, but it's mainly on linear substrates. Then you leave it in the water for 4 to 8 months, and you harvest it. So right now the kelp cultivation activities in Europe are all 1 year plants. The processing or the preservation of these, because it's a very perishable material, it's like fish, leave it in the sun for 1 hour and it will degrade and stink and be useless. So you always have to pre-process or preserve it very fast. I just have a little list of all these different things we have done in the last 8 years, so it's almost 1 per year. And you can see it's not an established process, so it's very early in the market. As soon as you have a client who gives an indication that they might want to buy a certain quantity, you say, okay, we do this, and then you do this. And so it's very hard to establish in a permanent basis. The way kelp is found, just a little sketch, we have normally a long line system based on a mooring system, and then the lines are put linear in the sea. One way or the other, it always comes down to something like that. This was the first kelp farm in Norway in 2016 or 15. This picture might have been 16. It looks much more orderly now, and it's bigger, but just to get a little impression, this would be like a 100-ton farming unit, more or less. Then you can place the substrate lines vertically or horizontally. Also that is pretty much done by everyone in a similar way. And you have a workboat coming in summer to pull out the lines, and that's how it can look like then in larger scale. To do that in Portugal. We see Portugal down here in the southwestern tip of Europe, and we see a very large area of free cultivation space there. There is no traditional use beside fisheries and marine transport and leisure. A steep continental shelf, so we could do things pretty close to shore compared to other places, and also quite nutrient-rich and cold waters, which is good for kelp. Now, the little problem here is we have more or less 3,000 kilometers or even more, 3,500 to the next coastline. there can be huge waves, sea states evolving. Up to 25 meters is like typical. There might have been a bigger wave once, but this is more or less what we say, and Joao Vitorino later talk will also get back to that. Just to see what that means in operational terms, if that is a 2.5 meter wave, which is already a quite a significant wave when you are with your workboat in the water, you would probably, in most farms, you would not work with these waves. A 25 meter wave would look like this. So of course, it's not about working there, but even a structure, even a flexible or semi-flexible structure like a seaweed farm, must survive. It must be there on this one day in maybe 1 or 2 years where the sea state comes. So the design, the technical development to farm in these areas is a longer term thing. It's not happening tomorrow, it's not happening with the techniques we're currently seeing in Northern Europe. But what we can do is we can validate growth and a few other things. So what the project comprised was to grow out in 4 different surroundings in different areas of Portugal, basically from north to south. One was the actual inland, the inshore cultivation at Algarve. We have done some benchmark trials there in case you have a high value client and to see if you can grow it under these more or less half controlled conditions. Then we were in the port basin of Sines, which is theoretically an ideal area because it's largely semi-protected. It cannot really be very tough stones there. And there was a company in Umar who thought about commercializing that kind of activity. So it was an ideal situation to try out. And then we had fully exposed offshore trials, but these were only on buoys because these would be flexible and going with the waves, and these would very likely withstand the sea. And we had hydrographic to design and implement these buoys, so that was a very good situation for this part. And then in the last part of the project that is still ongoing, we have an offshore sea bass and sea bream farm where there's an IMTA, a mixed cultivation scheme within the vertical algas public project now by Sea Culture. And Pedro Encarnação later will probably say something about that. This could be an ideal midway situation, but it is not as many spaces available as offshore. To say something about the findings, so just to say first, we use these 2 species, Saccharina latissima and Laminaria ocularia, for simple reason. These are the 2 only kelps really that are more or less at hand here in this coast. Saccharina latissima is already on its southernmost border. So in the southern part of Portugal, it hasn't been observed for a long time. In Laminaria ocularia is not commercially being cultivated by anyone else, but it's the most frequent here in this region. So we observed in the earthen ponds what could be expected, that we have extreme biofouling. There is growth, and with some maintenance and other actions, the situation could probably put to a point that the kelp could be produced to a certain extent, but unlikely to be in separate feasible undertakings. So it would always be more like a side operation. Then we have the semi-sheltered port basin, which was my personal hope to crack the code. And we had quite good growth in one trial. You can see that here. So that was after, I think, 4 or 5 months of growth. So it was really nice Saccharina and very healthy it looked. And so we planned the monitoring and take samples 1 week later. And then this is how it looked like then. 3 days later already, it was all eaten up. So we had a problem we have never experienced in Norway. That is grazing. So we had fish coming from the rocks and just eating it up in 1 day. So that was a new finding, but also biofouling is a big problem in these areas. The water quality in Sines Port Basin, we concluded, was not really reliable. Then in the fully exposed offshore, we have quite a promising growth. So these areas are definitely something that should be further looked at. We cannot say how it is with the nutrients when we cultivate very densely, but for trials, we have never seen a healthy seedling go to the offshore offshore anywhere in the coastline, that wouldn't grow unless the buoy is removed by fishermen. So we have these human activities that have caused us some troubles. And then the offshore without full exposure, the agave, in this case, we are still awaiting results, but the feeling is that the temperature issues in the sea and the competition issues with biofouling might be similar to the Seawish area, so we might be a little bit, we are not sure yet what it is, but it's a very productive sea all year round. Even in December you have little things that populate the lines. So we're not sure yet if this is a good area. We hope we will see some good growth out there. The conclusions are, in general, the kelp production in Europe faces a major challenge now, because basically, I'm saying here 2 euros per kilo, but that's very rough. It can be plus minus 50% at least, and plus company overhead. So if that is only counting on the operational costs that you have when you actually go out there, then you have to have a company that's behind that, and you have to pay people, managers, and installations and everything. So there's no way these small markets that could maybe pay 4, 5, or 6 euros per kilo could sustain this growth. And the large market potential is there, but all of them basically require less than 1 euro per kilo. I don't go into details here, but this can be seen in other places. Basically, we are at a level nowadays of 100 to 200 tons per farm production. I'm finishing. And we would need at least a few thousand for the company to break even. In Portugal, particularly here, the solkelp project showed us also there is no immediate commercial path for kelp here, but it is very, very interesting and very worthwhile to further look into the offshore and to the exposed offshore areas and to develop some technology that will surely be a 5 to 6 year development until you have some sizable cultivation. So that's it from my side. Emails to this address, the Agapos address, will also reach me in case of questions, and I will pass on to Rory.
The contribution of Institute Geographic to solkelp was mainly concerned to activity 3. So, and more specifically with the exposed offshore trials for kelp growth. The idea that was proposed was to maintain 2 periods of exposed offshore trials during the winter spring of 2022 and then 2023. In each to have 2 locations along our the west coast of Portugal. This is an area that is exposed to the energetic North Atlantic influences, and also exposed to atmospheric forcing regimes that can promote, for example, summer seasonal upwelling processes, the season. In each of the 2 locations that we should, the idea was to maintain 2 positions in order to have some redundancy, but also to allow the possibility of contrasting experiments, and we have selected the centimeters isobat, so in the transition from the shell inner to the big shell. And finally, to maintain monthly monitoring actions for the assessment of the growth, development. So the final locations that were selected were Nazaré, so north of Lisbon, you see that the circle in red, and Sines, the south of Lisbon. In Nazaré, the shelf is dominated by the impacts of this long and narrow submarine canyon, the Nazaré Canyon, that can, for example, intensify processes like upwelling, coastal upwelling. In Sines, the shelf is also impacted by this cape configuration, the Sines cape configuration that affects the dynamics, and there is also some more or less protection from the northwest swells due to the coastline further north. So, in terms of the preparation for the experiments, the work passed by the different steps were the design of the mooring systems that will accommodate the pests and the sensors and the algae. The final scheme that was adopted is shown here. It was proposed by my surprised that it worked fairly well, being robust to the extreme storms that we have during the winter in the west Portuguese coast. You see here the system in operation, so the buoy with the holding the sensor, and then the buoy that is the mooring component, and then the additional buoy that in red, that is where the cable from with the holding and sensors were installed. The second step was the preparation of the different systems, the adaptation of different systems, the buoys, the moorings, the adaptations of the sensors, and all the tracking systems and signaling systems. Also, the acquisition and installation of low-cost sensors for the monitoring of environmental conditions. So we are opted by this thoroughly temperature and salinity sensors, and by the sensors for the light intensity and the temperature. All the sensors were to be at the level of 1 hour. And then an important step was the articulation with the local communities. A major and key aspect was the articulation with the local maritime authorities, so the capitanias of Nazaré and Peniche. This was key for the support of operations. They namely interact or interface with the local populations and pass informative material like posters that were put in the capitanias, and also fact sheets that we have distributed among the community. And we also attended a session at Nazaré with the direct contact. This was in the beginning of 2022. This was affected by the COVID situation that was extended still in 2021, and so we have not the possibility to do a lot of sessions. In terms of the operations, you see here the general panorama. So in light blue, you have what was planned, and then you have what in fact was done. And I separated here the installation of the mooring systems, the buoys, and also the installation of the trials. Sometimes did not coincide in time due to the different environmental conditions, weather, and so on. And you see that during the first year we tried to maintain and more or less add the activities for the two positions in the two locations, so the two moorings in the two sites. And it was clear then that we had problems like these yellow bands that are drifting of the systems because there were some accidents and crashing of the roads and so on, and so the systems drifted away. We have been able to recover the system, in some cases to redeploy the systems, in other cases we just decided it was not possible to maintain, and in some cases in red, the systems were lost. So either set or was just drifted and it was not possible to recover the system. What we have concluded at the end of the first year is that in each location it was not possible due to intense fishing activities at the depths chosen. It was not possible to maintain two systems, so we just tried to continue the experiments with one system in each of the locations. Still, in Seniors, we had a lot of problems, and finally it was not possible to achieve the complete proposal plan. Challenges. Well, at the beginning, these systems require, because they are robust to extreme storm events and waves, they require some heavy chains in the bottom and so on, so the deployment had to be made with this hydrographic vessel, but then the monitoring of the grow was made with using rigs. The big problem was intense fishing activities here in Seniors, all the fishing activities, and not only the professional fishing, but also this recreational fishing and so on. And this is a very huge problem to maintain long time duration. Still, we have collected a number of data that is interesting. You see here for Nazaré and Seniors during the first period. In green, you have the algae deployments. In blue, you have the moments where you're taking photos of the development of the kelp. In red, there are samples collected. And in orange, you have the temperature, salinity, or light measurements that were collected. So we are at this stage, in the stage of analysis and integration of the data. So this means to integrate the vision that we obtain from the environmental conditions, temperature in the top, light intensity in the bottom, in the Seniors in 2003 experiment from May to July, with the analysis, so with the documentation of the different stages of the growth that was during the monitoring actions we have photo. integrate this also with other complementary data like remote sensing that can provide a bigger picture of the conditions that developed during the complete period of the experiments, and also in some cases with the integration of data collected by systems that oceanographic maintains, like these big multi-prolific buoys that are installed in this area, very close to the solkelp location, and then with the integration of numerical model simulations that will provide a more comprehensive understanding of the process. So, in terms of production and also research and development results, well, the time series of environmental conditions that can be put together with the algae development documentation, let's say, are available and be put available to the scientific community, and the characterization of the physical processes, I think, then complements the other aspects related to the kelp growth. In terms of conclusions, I will say that the mooring systems that were it's a know-how that we learned about how to maintain these kind of experiments in these highly energetic wave conditions. The intense fishing activity that leads to these difficulties to maintain the systems requires more specific strategies, so with local team elements that can act directly and daily with the local community, and then have a rapid response in case of accidents. And finally, we need to integrate different aspects, not only the data collector, but other aspects to have the broad view of how the environmental conditions evolve. I don't know. That's good. Thank you very much.
So as you know, most of you already know that macroalgae are autotrophic and photosynthetic organisms. They capture inorganic carbon and nutrients, and they absorb light. They inhabit mainly marine and rapid ecosystems, and there is a great diversity of species, very different in size, in morphology, in and life cycle. And the species are distributed according to several factors. Some of them are more important at local spatial scales, and other ones are more important at regional spatial scales, like, for example, temperature. And here we have an example of the Portuguese west coast, where we can find that there is a steep gradient in temperature. And this means that here is the southern limit of distribution of polar species, like Seaforester, as Frankie said, and also Balneola and others, which means that this Seaforester is developed of this project. It means that the populations here are not very abundant, and they are very fragmented. So sometimes it's difficult to find the spore types and even to So here I'm showing some of the species with commercial interest. There are thousands, several thousands of sea species, but only a few are commercialized and used, and even fewer are produced in aquaculture. So, and how do we cultivate them? In biological terms, there are two types of cultivation methods. The one is vegetative. One is the vegetative propagation, which means that we take a fragment of one silicose and then it grows attached to substrate, or in temporal culture, and there are some species where we need to control the life cycle. And this is an example of the life cycle of kelp. This case is Seaforester again, where you can see that there is two different stages. One is microscopic with the metaphytes, and the other one is macroscopic
and then use them when you need them. And this is very important because reproductive mother plants are seasonally found in nature, and sometimes because, as I said, here in Portugal, for instance, this species they find them some in the description here and are less abundant and are difficult to find in nature. So for growing these seedlings, we need this nursery stage. And nursery, these are the steps of the nursery. We have here the seeding. It's where we apply the gametophyte cultures or the spore solution into spools that have seeded culture stream wrapped around it. And then they are placed in aquaria or other tanks where the water is kept cool and clean. And with a definitely level of nutrients, and then after some weeks, more or less 4 weeks, the spore parts grow and are ready for deployment. Usually they are vectorized around a thicker rope, which is placed at sea. You can do that in the lab, and this is an example of this process where we do it also on the boat. And then after sometimes some months, we harvest. And these are some examples that were already mentioned. That we have here a line with Rose Satinolitissima in Singed, and here we have and the biological challenges. What are the main biological challenges? First of all, strain improvement compared to agricultural crops that have been domesticated a long time ago, and the strains have been improved. The seed cultivation as a crop is still very far behind, and it's still going through the stages of domestication, also breeding. So here the domestication is the reorganization of wild organisms into cultivated forms that are adapted to local conditions and to continuous care. And during domestication, there are already some strain selection. That is, individuals that grow better there or present more interesting features. And these are selected at this stage. Then we have breeding. That is the application of genetic principles to these organisms with desirable traits. And first, by crossing selected individuals, and then by selecting individuals in the progeny. In the case of kelp, there has been the cultivation and breeding extensive in Asia, countries like China, Japan, Korea, but still emergent in Europe and the United States. And there, in Asia, the traits, the target traits are gelt, of course, but also some traits that are related to customer preferences. So they like the kelps with the dark color and the smooth. But then there are other traits that are interesting, like the short stipes over there, which means that the stipes not fertilized, so we want large flated pigments and small stipes. But also there has been breeding for thermal tolerance and also for biochemical compositions like sugar and so another challenge is the control of the life cycle, better control of the life cycle. And here it can be by improving nursery methods, by, for example, decreasing the incubation period. We have here an example of a method that is being tested and already used. That's direct seeding, which means that the gametophyte cultures are glued onto the seeded stream and then are immediately deployed at sea, so it reduces the incubation time on land. And of course, we have interest in increasing the stream gravity, density, or the attraction of strength. And also we need to optimize culture conditions. We need higher and more consistent quality and yield, and some methods that are being tested and already used are multiple harvest, for instance, which means that instead of taking off all the seaweed, only the distal part of the blades are collected. So the upper part, which is the meristem, where the seaweed is actively growing,
I'm Margarida Martins. I'm the Innovation Coordinator at Alga Plus, and I'm here to talk to you a bit about the work that we have been developing in the frame of solkelp project. But for the ones that don't know our company, Alga Plus is a Portuguese company located in Idavo that farms on land seaweed species native from the Atlantic coast. Our system of production is mainly based on this concept of this system of IATA, integrated aquaculture, multi-trophic aquaculture. It means there are interactions between different trophic levels, in this case fish and seaweed, and it means also that the residues from the fish become the resources for the seaweed to grow. So we don't need to add any other fertilizers or additives to the seaweed to grow. It also improves the ecological footprint of fish farming and fosters the acceptance of aquaculture products by consumers. At Alga Plus, as I said, we mainly produce species native from the Atlantic coast, mainly green and red species. These are the ones that we know very well how to grow. However, and we grow them mainly on vegetative way. However, for the kelp, we don't have this established protocol. So here it comes solkelp project, and we thought we could have the conditions to have this kelp hatchery to produce kelp. Of course, since in the beginning we didn't have the knowledge, the consortium that we had, of course, helped us a lot to grow in this field, in this kelp production. So we had the help of Into-Sea, Seamart, Seaweed Solutions, and also SEAWEED. One of the first things that we did was to build this modular hatchery unit to be able to produce our kelp substrates. But then, after a while, we recognized that this hatchery needed some changes, mainly in terms of also logistics, but also in terms of water temperature and light intensity, mainly to adapt the conditions to the kelp needs. So regarding the seedling, this was another aspect that, of course, we needed a lot of help. And there were two strategies that we tested. The first strategy was based on the cultivation of spores obtained from wild collected mother plants. So, as Isabel said, we look in the nature reproductive tissue, we induce the spore release, and then we cultivate the spores. Other strategy that we also used was the cultivation of sporophytes from gametophyte cultures. In the first strategy, of course, we needed to find sorry in nature and also to release the spores. In this second strategy, we depend on having a nursery of gametophytes. For the first strategy, we followed two different protocols. One provided by Seaweed Solution, another by SEAWEED. For both of them, we look in the nature for reproductive seaweed. We collect this seaweed, we disinfect the seaweed, and then we induce the spore release. But in any of these cases, we had success in the end, and we could not have the spore release. For the second strategy, first the substrates were seeded with sporophytes obtained from gametophytes with the help of SEAWEED, and in a few weeks we have these blades with more or less 2 millimeters. We use this substrate to deploy in one of our earthen ponds at Alga Plus, and in the end we just had a maximum growth of around 7.5 centimeters. It means it was not very successful. Still talking about this strategy too, we adopt another strategy to be able to cultivate this laminaria. So instead of using the sporophytes, we use the gametophytes itself, and we cultivate at our hatchery during 10 weeks. So this is still ongoing trial. We use these substrates to deploy both in sea, in the open sea, in Algarve, and also in our outdoor tanks. As conclusion, and as I just showed, any protocol was completely efficient, at least up to now, and according to the conditions, we know that the protocol needs to be significantly adapted to be viable, namely to control the epiphytes. Additionally, we also deploy in our earthen ponds some substrates of Saccharina latissima and also Laminaria croleuca. The Saccharina results were more optimistic, let's say. However, we got very good blades, but with a lot of contamination. And with Laminaria croleuca, the seedlings did not develop. At Alga Plus, as I mentioned, we mainly focus our production in green and red species, and Palmaria palmata is a red species that we cultivate at Alga Plus, and it is also in the frame of this solkelp project. And if in one hand we receive a lot of help from our partners, in the other hand we also provide some knowledge on this Palmaria cultivation that you will see right after in Larissa's presentation. At Alga Plus, we produce Palmaria palmata since 2014. We have three different strains. We cultivate this species by vegetative propagation. However, Palmaria palmata is still the only species that we only produce in the winter. We are not able yet to produce it year-round, because this species is dependent on cold water temperatures and also light conditions. In 2022, we were able to cultivate or to farm 0.7 tons fresh weight of Palmaria. However, we want to be able to produce this species year-round, maybe using a modular hatchery unit to have these semi-controlled conditions, and it would be expected to achieve 3 tons fresh weight. Also, in the frame of solkelp project, and now I will ask Larissa to join to this presentation, we have strategic partners, like Norwegian partners that have, of course, colder waters and have at least this condition that is better than in Portugal. And that's all for me.
that really helped me start the indoor upscaling at SEAWEED Solutions. Obviously, we had a few more problems with troubleshooting, but eventually we managed to do our second round of trials last summer outside. So the first trials, so we started with approximately 2 kilograms across these 3 tanks here. So it's approximately 700 grams in each tank. And in Alga Plus, they see every 2 weeks a doubling in biomass. So you can see in the first 2 weeks, we actually had a doubling in biomass, and in the second 4 weeks. But really, the growth rate started to decrease. And as you can see from the photos, we had brown filamentous algae, or ectocarpus species. It really took over the plants, and we noticed that there was also quite a lot of bleaching in the trials. So this technique of kind of just collecting and sorting through didn't go so well. And we learned quite a lot from this because they weren't shaded. And obviously when you have 22 hours of sunlight, perhaps you need to think about that a little bit more. In some cases, it was over 1,500 micromoles of light. So the optimal range is somewhere around 200, so that's quite a lot higher than is optimal. And lids was quite a big factor because we weren't quite sure where the contamination was coming from. We shared facilities with another company, so that was essential for the next year. And something that Alga suggested was to start a smaller upscale. So our first technique where we gathered as much Palmari as possible and tried to upscale in big tanks wasn't quite a good idea, because if we start with better quality biomass and scale that up gradually, then when it becomes a larger production, we'll have less problems. It was also suggested that we collect from a few different populations to see if there's any differences in growth rate or success. So last year I started in February with these 6 blasts, and then by June we managed to upscale to this size, which was quite good from last year. I'll just go through this. So the different colours we have here represent 3 different sites in Norway that we collected from. So the red is Croya, where we have our sea farm. So we collected from there, and then Korsvika is beach in Trondheim, and also outside SEAWEED Solutions, the purple and blue. So you can already see that there was quite a big difference between the 3 areas that we I'm sure. So going back to the whole filamentous algae situation, how do we ever get sterile organic cultures? So we're thinking perhaps the best way to do this is doing it from spores. So we tried our hand at this. Obviously, we didn't invest too much time with that because everyone knows that palmaria is a little bit tricky with germination rates and the life cycle. We didn't have too much time to focus on this. But unfortunately, we still managed to get filamentous algae in our class. So then we decided the solution for this was to approach the professionals. So Oceanwide Seaweed, they specialise in palmaria cultivation, producing spawns and seeding lines. So they are producing some sterile starter cultures for us. And in addition to this, they are producing some schools. I had a go at feeding some lines myself, so hopefully we can compare the two schools produced. So all in all, we improved the quality and we've definitely reduced the X-carpet fouling outside compared to previous years. There is still lots of hope. There's amazing nutrients in the water, lots of light, so there's perfect conditions for palmaria cultivation outside. Just need to get it right. And yeah, we have all the knowledge learned to continue the trials and also test some more cultivation at sea, which is in line with our operations at Seaweed Solutions. Thank you.
Yeah, that finalizes our first part for the solkelp project. So if there is any issues right now, we still have a couple of minutes. Just please speak up because I have heard now that the streaming is not a good sound quality, so maybe we have to take microphones in the second part. But other than that, if there is any immediate issue for the solkelp project for the past 5 presentations that you do not prefer to have in the coffee break, then it's your chance now. No? So then, yeah, then we have our first break and we come back here in half an hour and meanwhile we have some time to discuss. Não está. Falta-me meter aqui isto. Está no 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Já está, né? Pois era ali. Eu vou ali, vou para este lado, peraí. Estamos aqui hoje, estamos a apanhar os jovens a dormir na câmara. Consegues controlar áudio aí?
Consigo controlar entrada e saída, a som, o volume. Vê lá. Som. Como é que está o som? O que é que achas do som? Ouve-se bem? Não é aquele topo.
Não, mas está.
coincidence. But anyway.
Okay. It is on. So now it's passing already? Okay, good. Yeah, we use the micro because the streaming wasn't working properly, the audio, unfortunately. So yeah, welcome to the second part, Seaforester, which is Jan. Unfortunately, Ines, who was foreseen to present one of the presentations, suddenly became sick. Well, she was here before, so, and Jan has, sick, like feeling sick. And Jan hasn't been too well either last night, but I think he can handle. So it's half an hour, right? Or
My
more or
20
less.
minutes and then Margarita's.
Okay, good. And
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everyone again. As this first part of the presentation is not mine, so bear with me if I'm seeming a bit lost. But so I'll be presenting to you the EA Seaforester project. So Seaforester, same name as our company. Sorry, I haven't used this before. It's here. Okay. So basically, our main mission at Seaforester is to restore what we call the forgotten forest in our ocean, and that we want to do through this blue front yard approach or model that we've been developing. Also with help, obviously, from the EA grant, which really helped us to build the organization. So that was the overall topic. So we like to start with this little story. You saw these pictures already because there is this really direct link between Seaforester and Seaweed Solutions, which is our CEO there in the back, Paul Buchan. So he started Seaweed Solutions back in 2008 or 9. And with these farming trials they did in Norway, they also noticed all these benefits that came with the implementation of farms. There were more fish in the area, more seabirds, just more wildlife in general. It can clean the water, all these benefits that also a natural forest has. So after seeing all these amazing benefits, there was the questions asked how the wild seaweed forests in the world are doing. And I guess we all, or a lot of people are aware they're not doing very well. So this is why, it's a lovely picture, by the way, I hadn't seen that before. I did not put that in. So this is why Paul and his team also then kind of shifted a bit their focus to wild seaweed ecosystems and also predominantly kelp, and to see where are they disappearing and what can we actually do to halt that disappearance and actually restore them. So that was the birth of Seaforester back in around 2016, right, initially as an initiative. And at the beginning, Paul was really going to a lot of governments, congresses, meetings, just to really spread that kind of idea that, or even to teach people, these ecosystems are disappearing, something needs to be done, and I think we have a really good idea of how we can do this. So this is, in a nutshell, or in an infographic, the Blue Front Yard approach. So I think in a nutshell, the Blue Front Yard approach is really, it means that we bring these kind of services to local community, but by actively also engaging with the community. So we kind of started that here in Cascais with the municipality of Cascais. So from the very beginning, we had a very great relationship. They allowed us to do a lot of the activities here in the sea, supported us doing a lot of tests that we were doing. And this was also coinciding then with the start of the EEA Seaforester project, where again, Cascais municipality was partnering. So this really helped us then throughout the years to, first of all, grow the team. So one thing is that we have the team at Seaforester. We're based actually next door here in Sturil. But we obviously can't do everything that we want to do in the sea with an office we have in Sturil. So we made a great collaboration with the Institute Politécnico de Leiria, with the MARE group. And there is, well, us and our extended team. João Franco is our head or lead research and development partner there, and then our nursery manager and nursery assistants. So now, this year, we actually got to 70 members. And the EA project also really helped us with setting up everything we need for the organization, and this is part of what I was just explaining, the Blue Front Yard approach, is that this is really heavily based on ideal partnerships. So in Portugal, we started, like I said, with municipalities. We heavily engaged dive clubs, so we're doing workshops with them. We started that a couple of years ago. We will continue this year. We're starting to more actively engage with the fishermen because, and I will present our techniques that we're using, but basically the fishermen could actually help us restore, and they could restore the habitat that they later will benefit from, because more of kelp in the ocean means more fish. And then overseas, we've also started to have a lot of collaborations with universities. Now our latest one is a collaboration with Bremen University and RWE in Germany. So on the tiny little island of Helgoland, where I'm actually going next week for the first time. So it's quite exciting. And there it's kind of it's more of a research side, but it helps us to figure out what kind of activities can we do in the North Sea with local species and North Sea conditions, which are even a bit more turbid than here, so even a bit more difficult to grow seaweeds. But so this really was a very big part of the EEA project, where we've been, and Inish put some numbers there together. We engaged with over 100 entities, 20 potential funders, of whom some are now our active supporters, and also 7 local stakeholder groups that we've engaged so far. And then part of this project was also to do what we called their feasibility studies, but it was really to look at what are all the components necessary to provide these services to a, for example, municipality. Seeds on wheels, as was called in the past. We're not calling it that anymore, I quite like that, but this is basically a containerized seaweed nursery. So this one, I'll show you some other pictures later. This one we started building together with Seaweed Solutions back in 2021. A long time has passed since then, but there was a lot of transport coming to Portugal. We changed the entire system, so I'll show you a bit of an update later. And then in Cascais, this is 2021, so very early days of trying a lot of different techniques. Again, in Cascais, this picture here, we are trying intertidal, no, what is this? Sorry, that's a Sporback technique we were trying. Obviously the green gravel, and now we're also starting with some more trials and other techniques this year. So basically this was all to have feasibility projects and studies to figure out infrastructure, techniques, and well, maybe the partnerships are missing on this slide, but to bring this all into that ecosystem together that we need. Now, one big part also what we proposed in the EA project was to look at how can we fund this, and this is, I think, a question that is asked every time we give presentations. It still comes from a lot of different areas, I think, but the main things are corporations, governments, and donors of philanthropy. We started off with government grants like the EA or Fundazul. I'm going on to, okay. I thought I was going over the time limit, sorry. But then we also had great support from the start from the World Wildlife Fund. They're still supporting us these days. Schmidt Marine Technology Foundation from the US. So there's a lot of foundations that are actually really behind this idea, which is very encouraging, as well as governments. But lately, in the last few years, we also started to get more corporate support. I think initially it was kind of smaller ones that just wanted to do something good and maybe give some parts of their revenues, which is not a huge thing. But recently, the big thing for us was a partnership with Purina Europe. So there we're in this big ocean restoration program with other ones doing oyster restoration, seagrass restoration, basically in Europe. And this has just been announced, so it's very early days. But that was a lot of, like, the foundations to get to this point, again, really helped the EA project with that. And we also did a lot of communication. I will only briefly talk through this because Margarita will later give a more detailed presentation on that. So we did some showrooms. This is all under the EA project we had together, one on land, one in the sea. At the beginning, we actually wanted to put statues with seaweed as hair in the sea, but that was not the best idea, apparently. So the showroom in the sea, in the end, turned out as a documentary that was produced by Nunusa, and the showroom on land, sorry. Then we also did, when the UN Ocean Conference happened, we did a side event in Cascais in a really lovely location. I think, Margarita, you will also talk about this, right? And then we also did some events. This is with one of the local dive clubs. And then we also did some information boards for beaches in Cascais, talking about seaweed in general, what are the seaweeds you can find, and then also talking a bit about restoration and why that is needed in Portugal. So, cool. Next part, this is actually my part. So, I think we haven't talked too much about the benefits of kelp forests in general. I think there was some information earlier related to farming. The thing is, these ecosystems are incredibly valuable, both in terms of what they can do for the environment, but also for economies. So this is also why we're in this. It's not just out of the good of our heart. Like, there's a real economic incentive behind restoring and protecting these ecosystems. So there aren't that many synthesis reports out there, but estimates right now look that in the European waters alone, seaweed forests contribute $128 billion in this case. We can translate that, but well, it's more or less the same. In terms of ecosystem services. And the most valuable of those are these three. We always call them the fish story, the cleanup story, and the carbon story. So for the fish story, this is what I talked about earlier. More seaweed forests, more of this ecosystem in the sea means more fish, and this is really beneficial for local fisheries. So 1 hectare, when you look at, I don't go into the details of the numbers, a hectare can theoretically produce nearly 2,500 kilograms of fish in a hectare of kelp forest. And this was, well, an estimate of the paper that around 38% harvesting rate means that a hectare can actually give you a ton of fish biomass every year. And then you can calculate what that is in economic terms, right? Cleanup story, they are highly efficient at sequestering, so they can sequester these excessive nitrites, nitrogen, phosphorus from waters, and that has a clear economic benefit because it's cleaning the water, it's good for aquaculture, it's good for tourism, it's good for everything, right? To have clean water. And the carbon story, I know the carbon thing is always on everyone's mind, always on the top of the discussion. They are very effective, also at sequestering. These are estimates, basically 10% of what a kelp forest produces annually in biomass can be stored in the long term, but this is when that biomass ends up in the deep sea. So it's not as easy to quantify their impact as it is for land forests and even in the marine environment. Seagrasses, mangroves, you take sediment cores, you can kind of know how much carbon is stored. For seaweed, that's a very complex and difficult thing. So carbon credits and all those kind of things, it doesn't exist for these habitats, unfortunately, yet. But I think it's just a matter of time and research, and people will get there. But this is what it looks like when we're actually losing kelp forests. And that is really not good. So over the past, half a decade, half century, sorry, we degraded roughly 50, now other estimates are 60% of global seaweed ecosystems. That is quite a large number. And throughout all these years, most of the restoration needs have been overlooked. And also the techniques weren't actually ready. Well, we are still developing them now, so it's a very young discipline, which is also why there isn't really, compared to other marine ecosystems, it's the smallest habitat in terms of restored across the world. And this is really why we also saw at SeaForester, we need to figure out to do something at scale, but also low cost, because it can't be that you spend millions and millions just on a hectare, because then, well, then there's no economic benefit, right? And this is one of our main tools, by far not the only one. We are now adding to the toolbox, but this is what we call the seeded stones, commonly more known as green gravel, I guess, for the people who are in that kind of area. And it's a, well, at least it's a simple to understand technique, to produce maybe not that simple, but all you need are stones, the kelp spores, light, and seawater. So the process is basically very similar to what you've seen earlier for seaweed farming, because you have at the start, it all starts with seed supply. That's even a picture from Seaweed Solutions, I believe. But rather than spraying or applying the seed stock onto a line that goes out on a long line for farming, we put these on small stones. We also have them in nurseries. We leave them a little longer, actually 3-4 months, depending a bit on the speed of growth of the cultures. And then we deploy them simply from a boat. And this is the lower cost part, because we don't need divers to deploy this. It's not underwater with lots of hours fixing things to the seabed. So it's a very scalable and comparatively low cost technique, with its limitations, which we are constantly improving. Every year it works a little better, but there's still, a way to go. And well, in the end, that's what we're aiming for, a restored kelp forest. And it has worked, so it's not like we haven't had any success. This was very early, I think this was in 2022. So we had great success. This is in Peniche at one of our partner sites. And since then we also had good success in Cascais on a reef, a bit more that way, in Cascais of the coast of Boca do Inferno. Great growth last year, but some limitations again of the technique, which we will adapt this year to increase our chances. So that was the technique, and this is our kind of technology part of the organization, where we're developing mobile seaweed nurseries. So the idea was that you can build a factory, but in a lot of places where you go, and often you also need to do some more feasibility studies, maybe smaller scale, there isn't always the infrastructure present that you need. I think here we were lucky. We have a partnership with EPL, so that worked out really well. But this might not be the case in all locations. And we also had a bit of a bottleneck in terms of upscaling, because we already got a lot of space inside the institute, more than we ever thought I think we would get. But it's still not enough to really go to larger scales. So this container, it started its life in Norway at Seaweed Solutions and is now here in Peniche. And the first culture of our rocks is currently ongoing. So we have, as you can see from the picture, a lot more capacity than in a couple of boxes in a lab. And the idea for them is, well, movable, standardized, plug and go. So basically, if you provide them to a coastline, it's just to plug them into infrastructure in terms of electricity and water. And flexible. So we want to use different restoration techniques, because green gravel, it will not work everywhere, and other techniques will also not work everywhere. So you need really a suite of restoration techniques to make this happen. And the good thing is we can even cater for farmers. So you can grow lines or stones in the same infrastructure, basically. We have two now. As I said, one in Peniche, and then we have one there on the lovely island of Helgoland, which we will get into operation next week. And the plan is really to spread more in Europe, but also we have our eyes on Australia, because our scientific advisors are there, and we have some really good sites with low-hanging fruits, basically, to do restoration in Australia and other places. And with all the work we've been doing over the past years, we got a lot of recognition. I think the main thing that happened in 2022 is that we became a finalist at this Earthshot Prize Foundation that was launched in 2020 by Prince William, who I'm talking to there, which was fun. It wasn't actually that much fun. And it was quite encouraging, because we got selected from over 1,000 different nominations. So it kind of gave us a boost to say, okay, we're on the right path. What we're doing, there's potential. So this is just a brief one of our current partners. So we have Purina, the most recent one, Schmidt Marine Foundation and WWF as main supporters, as I mentioned earlier, and then some kind of platforms, community platforms, and smaller for-profit and industries. And Cascais should have had a different section there. I didn't find more space. And obviously the government grants, and the research partners. So MADPL, they are our main research and operations partner in Portugal, University of Western Australia, our scientific advisors, and then AVI and Bremen University. That's kind of our newest baby project. And none of this would have also been possible without an increasing number of people. So we also made sure that we have not just marine scientists, because it's a business. So we have a really good diverse background of business and entrepreneurs, obviously marine scientists, financing, and then our extended team through the partnerships that we have. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. So this is my part now. And I'm going to talk a bit about Cascais municipality and about communities. Why is this important to Cascais municipality? We have a short budget, we have to allocate funding to our priorities, and our municipal priorities must be encountered by the municipal needs, by our population. And our population, most of them are connected to kelp forests. Kelp forests are part of our collective memoirs. In the 80s, there used to be quite abundant here in Cascais Coast. Right here in this spot in Pedra do Sal, there used to be a big kelp forest. And everyone knows and everyone in the 80s remembers being a kid and walking on the beach and have lots of kelp and algae on their feet. And this collective memory disappeared over the past years, and we don't know why, but we want to build them back. We want to build them back better. And this is the objective of the kelp forests projects, the marine forests. And these guys came up to us with a great idea. So SeaForester challenged us to bring them back and bring them back with the community involvement. So this was a big key to us, because without the community, we can't do anything. Without the fishermen, we can't have structures in the sea that last. Without the scientists, we can't have knowledge and passing on knowledge to the population. And without knowledge, without people realizing the importance of kelp forests, they don't love it. And if they don't love it, they can't protect it. And that's our motto. We have to know so that we can love, so that we can protect. And this is our mission here with this project. And we had a bit of a surprise in 2022, because we had some kind of clues that a big kelp forest existed in Montanha de Camões, or Camões Mountain, if you want. It's a large offshore mountain, just outside Cabo da Roca, about 22 kilometers. And the local fishermen said that when they went and fished there, the nets would come up full of kelp. So we knew that something was out there. But then in 2022, we had this expedition, and we were able to film those kelp forests. And we realized the importance of them. And because of those images, we also were able to communicate with the public. And this was a big key also. And and this big forest, the main species is Laminaria ocroleuco that we've heard about here in this workshop. And how does this fit in with our local strategy? So we have this scheme for our sea strategy for the ocean here in Cascais. It has 4 axes and priorities identified in each axis. And these priorities change every 2 years, because everything is growing really fast and everything is changing really fast. And the axes are reviewed every 4 years. So this way the municipality can keep up to date with the local necessities and can keep up to date with the local priorities. And sea forests and kelp forests are one of the priorities identified in our municipal strategy. And so the communication part of the EEI grant project was allocated to the municipality. And we thought that, no, we think that communicating with the public, it's easy, right? We only have to speak and they'll listen. It's not that. It doesn't work that way. It's one of the hardest things that we do as technicians, as scientists, is to communicate with the people, to make them aware of our natural inhabitants, to make them aware of the richness that exists here in our sea. It's really, really hard. And we tried everything. We didn't put out statues with seaweed in their hair, but we put out plaques in every beach of Cascais, in every passing spot. They were really beautiful, as you can see. They had lots of great images, but we saw that people didn't stop all that much to read them. So we also tried other strategies. We went to the beach. We talked to the kids. We made games with them. We taught them what were algae. They were not all those green stuff that they stepped on while going to the beach. We can eat them. They have a lot of ecosystem services. And this was really fun. But we also did events for grown-ups, like the UNOC side event that Ian spoke about. And this is really important because not only we were able to raise awareness locally, but also internationally. And then we built bridges with lots of partners, and we were able to scale up some aspects of the project. So this was also a really big key. But many of the local housewives, of the local people that work every day, that go to the city to work and come back at night, they don't have time to go to the UNOC events. They don't have time to go to the beach every day. So they don't have time to walk around and see the information plaques. So we had to bring them. We had to hook them. How do we do that? We thought of a documentary, but a documentary started out with the idea of being like a BBC, you know, with telling the story of how the rocks are raised and how everything is done in the lab. But then it matured to an idea of involvement with the population. And the whole documentary was made thinking about the people, the different stakeholders of Cascais, and how were the kelp forests important to them, how bringing back them was important. And I'm going to leave you a little trailer. Let's see. So. Sorry, the sound is not right. So the sound is not right, but I can walk you through it. We had a local fisherman talking about its importance. We had Ian and Inês at the facilities and in Peniche explaining why are the forests so important, the kelp forests so important in our ecosystem, but as well as in our history here in Cascais. We are right next to Parede. And Parede has an hospital dedicated to the diseases of the bones. And one of the big keys to this hospital was the iodine content of the air and the richness of the air. And this is because of algae. So we brought up all those little pieces of information from the municipality, from our people, and we put it in a documentary. It's available online on our YouTube channel. But it was also viewed in a fantastic sunset last year. And it's been a really great key in communicating the findings of this project and the interconnection with the population. And this is essential for us. And also, of course, since COVID, everyone is an expert in social media. So we boost people with information through our social media, Facebook, Instagram, internet pages, and we had lots of them, lots of communication with great feedback. And this way we can reach out to people, especially younger people, and communicate with them and see the interaction of why kelp forests are important to them. And this is it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Margarita. Very good. Okay, so the roundtable participants can maybe already prepare to come here. We don't have a table, but I will be back in a second with a few chairs. No. Okay. So it's maybe not the ideal geometry, but yeah. So what I wanted to discuss, or what we wanted to discuss, is maybe a little bit to have the context of seaweed as a business agent, because it's still very rare. It's still very early in Europe that seaweed has been used in, as an economic factor. And in this sense, I'm really happy that you could all come. We have Pedro Encarnação, the Director of Aquaculture of Jerónimo Martins Agro, and also responsible for the vertical algas PRR project that I mentioned before, which has built the structure and made available the space for our last little trials that we still did. Which is in the context of an IMTA. We have João Dias, the General Director of Iberagar SA, an agar producer of different qualities, a Portuguese agar producer, and as such quite unique company, I would say. And João Dias is also the representative of Iberagar in the same large project, the vertical algas. We have Ari Greenberg, a serial founder, startup founder and entrepreneur and senior advisor, and currently COO of SeaForester. So it's a bit of an inside job, but it's important that we have that side of things in the roundtable as well. And we have Elisabetta Costa, executive advisor of Blue Bio Alliance, the Portuguese, we could say the Portuguese reference association for synergies in blue bioeconomy, si signora. And yeah, sorry that I have to use the paper. It was too much to. And Elisabeth has also a university research background in macroalga compounds, so it's we have a lot of sensitivity for the aspect. I would also like to thank Sandra Silva and Ruta C. Spears from DGPM to be here. Unfortunately, it was not possible to have a larger discussion with all of us, but so we will start with Pedro. Maybe you can give us a little insight into the, how did this start with this IMTA, with the idea of IMTA, and what is behind your company being interested in the IMTA concept?
It's not working, so.
No, it's mainly on screen.
Okay. Okay, so we started, our focus is fish production. So we have developed projects, so aquaculture projects. Our main focus is on offshore production of fish. So fish being produced at sea in cages. And of course for us is a big concern what can be the impacts of aquaculture in the surrounding environment. So we do everything to minimize the impacts. And of course that since the beginning, we start looking at mitigation. So we know that when we are producing fish, we put, there is an input of nutrients, and we are looking into the IMTA concept to look at bioremediation, so that we have an integration ecosystem, that it's not only producing the fish, but then in the surroundings we are creating an ecosystem that can renovate itself, that can reutilize. So this is circular economy. We are doing the test with the seaweeds. We also want to look at bivalves. So we are doing in Cines, we are using clams. We are doing some tests with clams. So our focus is on sustainable production of fish. And we see with very good interest that we can use the seaweeds as a bioremediation tool for our production. So that at the end, when we produce our fish, we know that they are coming from an environment that is more sustainable and there's no impact.
Thank you. Then I would like to ask João to maybe quickly explain your motives in participating in the project, in the vertical algas, in the large collaboration project, and how do you see, possibly that could be an interesting point for you, because I think your agarophytes are all sourced in the nature by collecting typically, and how do you see the interest of cultivation in general, because that will be also the cost factor, of course, that will be a topic later as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, first of all. Iberagar is a agar producer. We are the bad guys in the room because we are the industry and we are harvesting seaweeds. Not all of our seaweed is harvested. We use parts of cultivated red seaweeds, mainly from Asia. But it is natural present in Portugal. Gracilaria, as an example, we can use that for produce agar-agar. Agar-agar is a polysaccharide that we use for many applications, from food to pharma and to biotech applications. Iberagar was established in 1964. We have some experience on this. And we entered vertical algas also because we like to think that we have to study and to be present on the mitigation part of our work. Not only for this, but also because we are looking for other molecules besides the agar-agar, the polysaccharide that we are producing, and that's our aim. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ari, first of all, I think the whole cultivation business should give a big thumbs up to you guys, because apparently seaforestation is now a little bit riding the wave better than cultivation. So how did you manage, or how would you describe, how can you turn a pure service for nature into a business, basically? That's quite exciting to hear, actually.
Yeah, thank you. And not a bad guy, a good guy, right? I think cultivation, to Frank's point, I think cultivation and restoration are different sides of the coin, right? We're both returning a nature-based product that has ancillary benefits, even when you're cultivating. But for restoration, where the main goal is to restore the habitat, what we're trying to do is find partners that are willing to pay to receive some of those economic benefits that Jan discussed, right? So for us, there's a couple of different potential buyers of this, right? Number one is corporations, right? Corporations are either through regulation or through their own self-enforcement are looking to ensure that their products that they buy or company mission is to restore the ocean health, right? And we have a bunch of companies that are reaching out to us and saying, hey, we want to do more for the world that we operate in, or they have a direct relationship with the ocean, right? They get fish stocks, they receive other nutrients from it, and they want to make sure that for their own economic benefits, they're returning some of that so it can persist, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think the fish story continues to be very interesting, and something that we're looking to develop at Sea Forester is, typically across the world we've seen fish stocks decline, right? And part of that is the only real way to restore fish stocks that has been done is to minimize fishing, or say, hey, okay, you can only fish of a certain size. That's a stick. That's a penalty to fishermen, right? So here we come with a carrot, and we can work with governments or fishermen cooperatives to say, hey, invest in this. We can restore the fish stocks that your livelihood depends on, right? So that's the second group, companies, the fish story. And then the last part is that governments around the world are already investing in nature restoration, right? And they're doing this almost exclusively on land. Outside of the people in this room, the ocean is largely forgotten because it's out of sight and out of mind. So we're going to those same governments, those same funds, those same large institutions to say, hey, you gave $1 billion, $3 billion to do land-based restoration. How can we forget this huge conveyor belt of benefits, whether it's carbon sequestration, nutrient restoration, or filtration? We have to start looking at this at the same level. So there's three types of we think, end buyers for this. And I think to the point, the wave that we're riding is people are starting to see all three of those things come together at the same time.
Yeah, so, and now we can close the circle to the start of the discussion with the experience of Elisabeth. And I would like to first mention a little bit, okay, my vision is a bit limited to kelps, but I feel that the market at the moment is a big challenge. So production costs and upscaling challenges versus path to income. So you have typically in all these new activities in the sea, where we talk about offshore activities, we have a maybe 5 to 10 years investment horizon, and investors typically like to have their money back in 3 to 5 years. And the Blue Bio Alliance, as a kind of actor in this area, you must have quite a vision on these things as well inside the network. What is your feeling regarding these activities? Are they struggling to become viable, or what is your feeling regarding upscaling, large scale, or ocean use in a more economic way?
So, thank you, Frank, first of all, and the organization. Thank you so much for the invitation. For me, it's an honor because I'm here with associates from Blue Bio Alliance, and so to bring here the experience and also the network that we represent. And it is awesome because we have all the value chain regarding seaweeds. So we have harvesters, we have producers that produce in a sustainable way, such as Alga Plus inland. Also, we have the blue biotechnology that use these marine resources, that use seaweeds, and the best profit that they can bring regarding the sustainable resource for the industry. And we have also the restoration, and in this case, the case of seaforester that are working more in the restoration, in the biodiversity. And we have the R&D centers that are here needed to help to tackle the challenges regarding the technology and the innovation that is needed regarding these projects. And also the big companies that are here probably some of the players that have lots of interest in seaweeds regarding seaweeds as a source of alternative materials regarding the alternative of fossil-based ones. And so to try to reply to your question, since we have here these three categories, I will say like this. So we have the production, harvesting, we have the transformation, the blue biotechnology that we know that is usually a long way to have here a product and to show to industry that this is a viable product, so that can be a viable business as well. And then we have on the other side the restoration. And so these are indeed different fields that altogether I think this is the momentum for seaweeds. Why? Investors are also looking at solutions where they can invest that can tackle the climate change mitigation, that can afford here the solution for the market, that can reply to all the questions that we have on the table regarding producing a sustainable way. Then you have to complete the circularity regarding the process. Now we have the carbon credit markets, and to bring everything together and the different players is not easy. So, looking at the scenario in 5 years or 10 years, I could say that for aquaculture, looking for investment, it is not being a problem. It is a problem maybe to scale up and to tackle regulations and show industries that they can afford this biomass that industry is looking at. Then when we see the Blue Biotechnology, and was a good exercise because at Blue Bio Alliance we have associates not only for Portugal. And I was looking for the startups that are working with seaweeds to bring products to cosmetics, to bring the new polymers for textile industry that are bringing the bioplastics. And we have so many knowledge, so many technologies, so many R&D centers, and we see some results here where they are really great to do this job. However, we do not have in Portugal this kind of solutions as a business. So right now, not only in Portugal, not only in Europe, but all around the world, everyone is looking at seaweeds, as a solution to tackle different challenges. But maybe the academy is not putting the effort to transform it in business, or somehow we have here a struggle that we don't understand why we developed so high quality and excellent R&D in Portugal, and we do not afford these Blue Biotechnology reply solutions to the market. And then we see the restoration in here. It is difficult, just to come back to the Blue Biotechnology. Investors are investing, and here in Portugal, we have investors investing in Blue Biotechnology, and it is needed also to have here the compromise for the public funding to support, and all together in the blended model, bring the efforts that the public funding and the investors can put together and help these startups and these projects to grow. And then the restoration, that here the difficult, and it was great because I used this business case the last week in Barcelona, and was great because in the audience the pain was the same. How do we attract investors? And this is a big difficult for you. Why? Because you have to show the business case that you have. You have to be very concrete to say, okay, this is how I will do to get money, and this is how you will have a return in few years. So I won't say 5, but few years. And I could say that I hear this from a business angel. It is difficult for me to invest in something that does not grow, that we cannot cut and transform in something. But could be a business model, this play with geographies. Okay, you put here, and then you have another client for another geography. And also, what I think that could be a good opportunity now, there is the carbon market for this kind of solutions. And so, how I see the future regarding the viability for the business regarding seaweeds, I think we have everything in a nutshell. So maybe more collaboration between who is harvesting and who is producing. And we see this at Blue Bio Alliance because we have everyone working together. We have someone that is harvesting from the sea that has problems because right now we have a seaweed that is an invasive species that is compromising the biodiversity that we have, and we cannot do nothing because we don't have a regulation to do this, because we cannot put it in agriculture since it has heavy metals, has microplastics, and so we have another associate that can have in a solution and then can help to recover this seaweed as methodology to recover the seaweed, and also is trying to add value to the components that the seaweed can bring, and so here have some value from this specific species. But also collaborate with who is producing inland also, that has here the compromise to produce in a sustainable way, but also providing here a biomass with a consistent biochemical composition that can here bring a solution, for example, for big companies that are looking here in Portugal. We have big companies, and this is also something that we are developing in the Pact of the Bioeconomia Azul, Blue Bioeconomy Pact. We are developing the proof of concept, and we are hearing the challenges from the big companies, and we are looking for solutions that are in the market that need to do the proof of concept in the environmental, in the industrial environment. And so what we are learning that the big companies are interested in to have this process of the green transition, of the circularity. They have interest in seaweeds. However, they have challenges. You have to afford volumes to guarantee the production, and you have to guarantee that the raw material has that composition. For example, for a pigment, you cannot afford a blue or a green today, and tomorrow a dark green, for example. And so this, we have to hear these challenges to help who is producing through biotechnology to afford the product that the market is needing. And also, I think what we do at Blue Bio Alliance is to promote this collaboration. So here and bring the investors, also bring, prepare and talk with everyone to apply to public funding and bring together in contact one with each other.
Okay, so thank you. That's a lot of information. But there is one aspect here that I am wondering, that is pure numbers. I am someone who miraculously survived more than 20 years of working with things that were not a business yet. And right now I feel that should somehow be possible to bridge that gap. But still, in case of seaweed in particular, we can use this special case that I mentioned in my presentation, for example. So let's assume we have it all sorted out, the quality is okay. In your case, for example, the composition, we know that's not the case for cultivation, there still has to be work done, but let's assume that's the case. But companies are producing levels of 100 tons per year in case of kelp. In terms of agarophytes, it's probably much less if it is here in Europe. But they will need several thousands of tons. So we would probably look at an investment horizon of 10, 20, 30 million euros for a small mid company to be able to get there. Based on my own experience, you don't get that money on the venture capital market, or you shouldn't get it on the venture capital market because they want it back in 3 or 4 years. So my feeling is there needs to be a different mix of things, and I think one of these things is what Elisabeth mentioned. It's a more involvement of the big companies that somehow, or of the industrial companies, of the clients of the seaweed, that don't necessarily say commit to big amounts of investment or directly invest in cultivation, but that they would say, okay, if we can reach, we might need cultivate seaweed. So you mentioned, João, that in your operation you also cultivate. So sorry, I didn't know that. But in Portugal, I think it's not happening at the moment, correct? So as a Portuguese company, probably you would find it interesting to cultivate in Portugal. So I would find it interesting, what is the kind of span that you have to bridge?
The problem here is we have a gap regarding economics. That's the main issue. We don't cultivate here because we can buy it outside with very cheaper price. That's the main reason, and I cannot solve that. Sorry, but that's the reason. That's the reason.
No, you cannot solve it, but it's for example, do you feel that the supply from outside, the cheap supply, is, well, let's not say endless, but will not hit a roof soon? Yeah? Yeah, because then in your case you don't need to bother about cultivation. That's obvious, because there are other sectors that.
Our market is more for the technical agars, and the demand of this type of agars is stable. Okay, if you are talking about a food grade that is growing, then you have to worry about the quantity of biomass that you are buying. Our being stable, we can choose where we want to buy and the quality we want to buy. But the issue is the difficulties, the economic difficulty, the quality, the yields, that kind of problems that need to be solved in order to involve the industry and buy more cultivated seaweed.
Yeah, because that's what I've also seen in the large food market. We had in the past very large food companies or also feed companies being interested in sea, but they will need thousands of tons dry per month and same quality.
Our factory consume 10,000 tons per year. Yeah. So dry weight. Yeah, it's 3 times.
Yeah, so again, the question remains, how can European companies that want to do this sustainable business? Actually, Adi, yeah?
We have 5 local sites. So multiply this per 5.
Yeah, yes. And it's not so much. It's not as much as feed business for the salmon, for example. But Pedro, for example, in your case, I mean, we have our first experience now in the Algarve, in the pilot, and things have not been growing as well as we hoped, but it's always the first season. Imagining this will all grow very fast and very wealthy, and how do you see, is this all kind of more like a research thing, or do you see already some closer applications for the seaweed that you might produce there? Are there any plans that you have in stock that you might want to reveal?
Actually, our interest in our model is the integration of seaweed and fish farming. We see the seaweed not as a business as our own, but could be a synergy between us and other industries. Like, for example, it's not that we would be the ones producing the seaweeds. We can do it, depends. So what we are looking is, our focus is producing fish, okay? But we want also to produce the fish the best way possible. We want to create an environment where the fish grows better, that they have better conditions. We also want to create an environment where we have this circular economy, that, you know, we provide nutrients, and then there is another industry, in this case seaweed production, that can use these nutrients to grow. And we have synergistics, because we are not experts in seaweeds. So for us, we see this as a partnership model where we have the site. We are now doing the research to look at, to see which is the best seaweed that can adapt there. So we don't know which species. We don't know still what to produce. We can look at different areas. One is, I want bioremediation, which is the best species to give me bioremediation. And then at the end, I have biomass. What can I do with this biomass? If it is for fertilizer, if it goes to animal feed, if it goes to cosmetics, if you find some components that can be used. That is another scenario, is you identify a species that has some very interesting biocomponents that can make this more valuable, right? Then it becomes a more interesting business, which is to produce something that then has a higher value in the market, cosmetics, pharmacy, etc. For us at the moment, we are doing this pilot. We want to show that it is possible to produce seaweeds along with fish farms or in the coast of Portugal in the Algarve, because that is the other thing that the challenge is there. But if it is possible, then there's these two possibilities. One is us to produce it. It's not our expertise. We might decide it's an interesting business, let's go for it, and we produce it. Or we welcome companies that want to do it in a synergistic way, so that we give nutrients, we give the conditions, they absorb the nutrients and give us also conditions for our fish. So this is the way we see it. And of course, there's also restoration, carbon credits. That is another thing that we still didn't look at it, but for example, could be interesting for us to say, look, I want to reduce the carbon footprint of my operations. So I'm going to do this as a service to reduce my carbon footprint, which for companies, this could also be important and interesting. And you were mentioning this is the value of seaweed production is not only on the product itself, but also on the service to the environment, carbon sequestration and so on.
I do think that's to the point about how do we bridge this economic gap where it costs too much here to produce seaweed versus what the buyer directly, right? I do think you need to take a platform approach where you are looking at multiple revenue streams across the same product, right? I think that is how companies can get creative to look at both restoration, cultivation, fishing, other government grants to combine that into a very powerful opportunity, right? And I do also think there's another class of investors that look at that who are not only interested in seaweed directly, but they're interested in looking at the next wave of an economic model, right? Or a blue economy model. And in this case, the seaweed is one way that you're looking at multiple products from multiple buyers that could fund multiple different industries. But if we take such a narrow approach, just this one product for this one market, and there's already 1 billion tons being produced by China at a much lower cost, it's going to be a very long road.
I can only add here, because it is interesting when we hear from our associates that produce and harvest that are looking for clients. And we have other associates that are looking for biomass outside the country. And so I think, and Pedro already mentioned this, we have a very harsh offshore cost that does not allow us to produce as we want seaweeds offshore. Then we have to look inland, and how can we, and maybe Margarida can talk about the experience of having a company inland, and so how we need land to produce seaweeds inland without compromise the land that is needed to produce the vegetables and so on. And so we have the regulation between who is also managing the area that we have offshore, and how we can transform or bring this inland and produce inland without or dealing with so many types of regulations. And so I don't know if it is only a question of price in Portugal to have here, to afford the biomass that probably you would need, but if it is also a story that has different players that have to be at the same table talking, and this implies also regulation. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that will come on top of the price, actually. I know that it has been an issue. It is always an issue because authorities are not always streamlined, and if one pulls a string, the other one thinks they have to pull the string, and it's not but that's in new sectors, I think, is natural. But coming back to what Pedro said, so first of all, it's kind of obvious. So you you don't have an immediate interest in the seaweed. You have it as you want to be a facilitator because it's benefiting your operations. So that's actually very interesting for anyone who wants to be the owner of the seaweed. But then we come back to the question exactly that João mentioned. It's the price. And we have to be honest with ourselves here in Europe. We will not be able to produce 1 kilo of seaweed for 20 cents within the next, as long as we're a small company. And that gap, that valley of death, if you want to call it like this, is very long in case of seaweed and other things like renewable energies or anything. And that's why I think SeaForester has found an extremely interesting approach to that, because you don't really depend so much on the value of the material. Your value is the ecosystem service. And of course, we as seaweed cultivation always say that as well. You know, it's the greenest way of eating something, or the most, the least, the least polluting way. But do you see, Ari, a way, because we always banking on the different, or we always stressing the differences between cultivation and restoration. But Pedro's case tells me their INTA farm should be more seen as a restoration in this case, although it's a farm as if it was a cultivation farm. So where do you see the limits? First of all, would you be afraid that cultivators poach your terrain? Or the other way, do you see possible arguments that could be used both sides and for the upscaling phase?
Yeah, first of all, you're giving us a lot of hype, right? So I appreciate that. You make it seem like we've already won. We are still in the very early innings of this, and we have not yet won, and we're just really at the beginning. So I would caution everyone that the restoration has found a secret sauce to this. I think we're hopeful, right? But I do think that there is a balance that will come naturally through the economics and business development of how we pursue both of these different lines of business, right? As restoration goes, we'll start to find the right price, or the market price as product market fit develops. Cultivation is ahead of it, right? Cultivation is in the valley of death to some degree, and restoration is maybe on the early side. Right, exactly, right? So I do think there's a collaborative approach, and I think that would be like the one thing that I would say is that, restoration has a lot to learn from cultivation. Cultivation has a lot to learn from restoration. A lot of the things that each different party has learned could be beneficial to the other. And we'll see, we'll all be participants on this journey. We'll see where it goes. But as long as we have creative people and collaborative people in this business, and we're having these types of conversations, I think the European seaweed business has a bright future.
And we benefit from this.
Yeah, so if there is any other input, maybe from the audience or from any one of us, welcome. Otherwise, I think Ari made a great point for the end of this day. Yeah, Sandra.
I need to speak to them?
Yeah, because of the streaming.
Okay, I will not participate in this particular issue, but representing the Blue Growth Program operator funding, for me it was very interesting to hear this conversation, because, for instance, I can tell you that the SeaForester project, when was approved, even for me, okay, reforestation as a business, come on. So, and as you know, our program has the main objective to increase the creative value of the companies by the innovation, by bringing new products and new solutions. And so the main focus is business. What we want to fundings to help you to scale up all these difficulties. And it's a small contribution, but okay, it helps. But your discussion brings me an idea, because we would like to make a final event in, I don't know where, November, I suppose, when we all do this work by closing the project. But we would like to make some kind of a workshop, seminar, to bring all the projects, and because our program is business, research, and education, training, and also ocean literacy. And we would like to come up with several projects with common synergies and complementarities, because I think here you have all of these. You have research, you have business, ocean literacy somehow, but you can also bring education and training in some aspects. Last week we have also a closure of project by a research project, and it calls yam algae. Yam because they are developing a solution with microalgae. I don't know the particular technical term, so I apologize, but they introduce some enzymes and to turn the microalgae in a tasty flavor and color to the natural customer to be acceptable by you to eat green bread. I eat green bread, and they introduce this in the cheese also. They make cheese with, so this is all the value chain. You are, and Elizabeth also have this experience. Well, we as program operator, because we know many promoters and partners, and okay, and also Elizabeth that know many associative companies and startups. So let's do something to show this in a broad audience, I think.
You mentioned the last consumers, because they, at the end, they will pay for the final price, and maybe they can afford the high level or an higher price if they have this interest in contribute to a circular economy and to sustainability, and also to a national production of seaweed. And so education of consumers, and not only tasting, but also this value regarding the price and the quality.
One of the things they show in this presentation, it was in the Superior Institute of Agronomy, promoted, and one particular thing was they are selling several products with a small component of algae. It can be 0.05, but since it has algae, it is healthy, so I should take it in a pill, in a whatever. And only the brand can bring some acceptance by the public. It depends how you do this marketing.
Yeah, that's a very good loop, because we have some snacks outside, but we first have one more.
No, sorry. My name is Manuel Schmidt. I'm a consultant and a broad enthusiast on blue economy topics. I mean, very nice presentation so far. What I keep wondering on nice projects, small scale projects, let me say, both on conservation and on cultivation. But we need to grow. How can we scale up this business or conservation or cultivation? Because we have millions of applications for the algae. We have millions of algae with different applications, but we need to scale them up. We don't have perhaps the right technique. I understand for Frank's initial presentation that offshore will be the way. Inland we are limited, sized. I don't know anything about the proper technique. To go offshore, there are huge waves. We've tried that here. But we need to scale it up, either to supply the aquaculture industry or many other applications. So my question is this: how to scale up this business? How do you see this business in 5 to 10 years' time? Okay.
That's perhaps for you.
I'm afraid it is, and I think maybe I made it not clear enough, but I was asking everyone else here how do I get my money. So it is really. Paul always says I'm a pessimist, but I don't think I am. I just don't see where shall healthy money come from to make medium to long-term technology and supply chain development that has to be done before the money can come back. The sea is much more difficult to work in than here on land. Whatever we do here, we go there, we go to the kitchen, we go to our lab, we do something. Whenever we go to the sea, we have a skipper who tells you first, oh, not today, it's a bad weather. No, there's some problem with the buoy. So it's a totally different way of working. It takes longer. You have very much seasonal issues. So yes, and it depends on the nature and on economic factors and other things, and on availability of things. Then in Portugal in particular, we do not have an existing supply chain for the offshore works, which is very different to the North Sea countries and then Norway and then UK. So whenever we want to have a workbook, Pedro knows this very well. They had to pay a lot of money now to get a work platform that was able to do their next stage moorings for 3 weeks or something, and it had to come from the Canary Islands, and that was luck because they were just nearby. Normally they're in Holland or in the UK. So it is really extremely cost and energy or effort intense to get something developed that will ultimately work and be able to upscale. And the public money is simply not enough, and also honestly not good enough. It's too much bureaucracy, it's too much rigidity actually. We cannot change our plans after 2 years, and often when we make the proposal, when we get the money, it is already old what we proposed, so we needed to change it. And that applies to all public money. It's not a criticism to this program here. It's just simply public money is very, very good and the most healthy thing of doing innovation. But it is normally, it brings some additional problems to this kind of development. And the private money that I have seen so far does always get very nervous after 2 or 3 years. So even people with a very long breath, with a lot of money, they will say, okay, you don't only need to make a business case at the end of the road. You always will be asked after 2 or 3 years, okay, when is this? It will always be, even if you say in the beginning it's in 10 years, that will not be good enough. So, I agree with Paul. Yes, I have not met the right people yet with their deep pockets. So maybe someone else wants to say something about it. Yeah, maybe you are the right guy now.
I think the key thing on that, Frank, is that we need participation more from the market, from customers. And I think that is also for cultivation now. Huh? And that is happening more and more. Many companies have been sitting on the fence, fish feed companies, food companies, biostimulant, and so on. So I think that will happen. It is about to happen too, but they're sitting there. Another thing that maybe haven't been discussed is subsidies. Every farmer on land in Europe are subsidized in all European countries. Why don't we subsidize farmers of the sea? Especially when this is a new industry, per kilo. Not only government grants, you need that too. So that's one comment on the cultivation side. On the restoration side, I think it's already happening because people see it, like I imagine, this will hit the bottom line in the future and there are benefits. We have to take care of the ocean, otherwise it's a question of survival. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Very good, thank you. That's a good point. And now, yeah, I think we have to close this and go to the cocktails and to the snacks. We will test you as consumers. And there are cocktails with real alcohol and probably without. And there are also cocktails with seaweed or with algae, but not without.